It's been a dramatic 24 hours on two global fronts, with Israel shattering the Gaza ceasefire and Russia agreeing to a limited pause in hostilities with Ukraine. We're going to get more on the situation in Gaza from our correspondent in the Middle East in just a moment. But first, the White House says Russia's President Vladimir Putin has agreed to halt attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure after a 90-plus minute phone call with his US counterpart Donald Trump.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has moments ago expressed support for the plan, saying that he hopes to speak with the US President to get more details on what the two leaders discussed. Let's go straight to our Americas editor, John Lyons, who is in Washington, and our Europe Bureau Chief, Mazoe Ford, who is in London. Good morning to you both. John, what do we know about this phone call and what was discussed, and whether or not anything significant has actually come out of it?
Well, James, if this was a game of poker, then Vladimir Putin won. Donald Trump wanted an immediate ceasefire there. He wanted the announcement effect of being able to say, I've brought an end to this war. That's not happened. Vladimir Putin's agreed, given a couple of things. He's agreed that they should be a ceasefire in terms of attacking of energy and infrastructure projects. That's both sides, of course. The Ukrainians have also been hitting Russian energy and infrastructure projects, and they'll begin immediate permanent ceasefire talks in the Middle East. But it's classic Vladimir Putin, you know, to yes, I'll agree with this, and yes, I'm on side. But it's interesting that in this 90 minutes, they ventured into all sorts of other territory, Iran, Israel, and a whole lot of other things, why the US and Russia should have much closer relations. And so the Ukraine war was actually not the only focus of the talks. So it's better than nothing, but I think in round one goes to Vladimir Putin.
And Mazoe, European leaders have been extremely sceptical about these talks, saying effectively that Vladimir Putin cannot be trusted. The Ukrainian president is in Finland, and we've just had some of his reaction in the past hour or so.
Yes, James, we've heard from Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who said he would support the US proposal for the stopping of strikes on Russian energy infrastructure, and indeed that he'd support any proposal that would lead to a stable and just peace. Now, during that Trump and Putin call, Russia said that the end to the fighting would not be possible while foreign aid and foreign intelligence sharing with Kyiv was continuing. This has been a major sticking point for Vladimir Putin throughout all of this. But Volodymyr Zelenskyy has responded by saying this is just a demand to try to weaken us and allow them to rearm, and that he hoped his allies would stand by him and not cut that vital military aid. While we're still getting reaction in from the allies throughout Europe and beyond, we certainly know from everything they've said leading up to this point that they would plan to stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes. Now, Volodymyr Zelenskyy had a phone call of his own after the Trump and Putin phone call. He spoke with the outgoing Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, and the French President, Emmanuel Macron, and they all said that what they need to hear now is some more detail about the phone call, and critically what Russia promised to America and what the Americans offered to the Russians. The European leaders have been watching on nervously. They've been in crisis talks of their own over the past weeks. Macron said there can be no more negotiations without Ukraine at the table. The German Chancellor said this is just the first step, this ceasefire. We've heard from Downing Street to the UK Prime Minister saying that he welcomes the progress President Trump has made towards a ceasefire. These negotiations must lead to a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. And we can expect some more statements from other European leaders as they pour over those statements from the Kremlin and the White House about this ceasefire on energy infrastructure for the next 30 days. And then tomorrow we'll see defence chiefs from this so-called coalition of the willing from Ukraine's allies meet here in London to discuss what they would do in the event of a full ceasefire.
All right, Mazoe Ford in London and John Lyons in Washington, thank you so much.
Well, to the Middle East now, because Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued a grave warning saying that Israeli airstrikes across Gaza that have reportedly killed hundreds of Palestinians are what he calls only the beginning. Our Middle East correspondent Matthew Doran has more for us from Tel Aviv in Israel.
Well, thousands have gathered here in central Tel Aviv to voice their anger at the Netanyahu government for launching these strikes. The concern is that these attacks on Gaza will not only hurt the Palestinian population there, and the death toll continues to rise, but it will also jeopardise the lives and threaten the lives of the remaining Israeli hostages still held captive by Hamas in the Strip. There are 59 Israelis still in Gaza. 24 of them are believed to still be alive. And we have heard from some former Israeli hostages about their concerns going forward.
Today the ceasefire has collapsed. For the 59 hostages still held in Gaza and their families, this moment brings renewed fear, not only of the ongoing attacks, but of a breakdown in negotiations that could bring them home. Every effort must be made to prevent further loss of innocent life and to ensure that diplomacy continues.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has addressed the nation tonight. He is saying that this is a necessary step to getting those hostages home.
To those who criticize Israel, I ask, what would you do if terrorists murdered and kidnapped your children? You would do what we are doing. In the face of pure evil, free societies have no choice but to fight.
While Israel insists it is targeting Hamas terrorists in Gaza, the death toll paints a very different picture. The scenes that we have seen coming out of the war-ravaged Strip have been distressing and concerning. The death toll is now more than 400, and that is likely to climb. Many more have been injured, and is putting immense strain on Gaza's hospital system. One Australian doctor who is working in one of those hospitals has given a unique and distressing insight into what the last few hours and for the last day or so has been like.
I've been there all night and I haven't stopped, and my legs are shaking and I feel dizzy and lightheaded. The smell of burnt flesh is still in my nose.
We have also seen this evening here in Israel air warning sirens ringing out across southern parts of the country. That's because a missile was launched by Houthi rebels in Yemen. It was intercepted before it arrived in Israel. However, the Houthis are warning that they will continue to ratchet up their aggression towards Israel in the event that Israel does not stop these strikes in Gaza. This is something that shows just how interconnected many of these conflicts in the region are, and it shows that the peace in this region, or the relative peace, because we know that there have been strikes going on for some time, but that relative peace is incredibly precarious as a result of these massive strikes by Israel.
That's Matthew Doran reporting for us from Tel Aviv. Let's get more of the day's news now. Emma's here.
Thank you. OK, we'll bring it back home because the administrator at the Whyalla Steelworks in South Australia is warning it doesn't have sufficient funding to keep the plant operating for 12 months after the plant was forced into voluntary administration last month. It comes as the operators plan a temporary shutdown to conduct maintenance on a troubled blast furnace, which was out of action for several months last year, bringing the facility to a standstill. WA's New Look cabinet will be sworn in today after Premier Roger Cook named the team following his party's election win on the 8th of March. A major reshuffle of ministerial positions created several new portfolios, including decarbonisation and climate resilience. Mr Cook has warned ministers will need to be on their guard and perform. Northern Territory Chief Minister Leo Finocchiaro has announced Michael Murphy has officially been sacked as Police Commissioner. The dismissal process began early this month after Mr Murphy revealed he was the target of an ICAC report into improper conduct. Ms Finocchiaro says the terms of his appointment require a payment of 6 months' pay, which will be processed promptly. New data shows the number of young people leaving public hospitals in New South Wales before completing treatment has increased by 32% in the past 5 years. The data from the Bureau of Health Information shows ambulance and emergency department waiting times increased in the same period as well. There's also been a 220% increase in the number of people waiting longer than recommended for elective surgery. Queenslanders are being reminded not to handle bats under any circumstances after a member of the public brought a bat found near a suburban school into a care organisation where it died. The bat was unable to be tested for Australian bat lyssavirus, which is transmitted through bites or scratches and, if left untreated, can be deadly to humans.
Let's take a quick look at global markets. The futures pointing down this morning as well as the Dow, and the Australian dollar flat at 63.5 US cents this morning.
Now, a British man has been convicted over the theft of an 18-carat gold toilet. It was worth nearly $10 million. It was part of an exhibition at Blenheim Palace. Prosecutors say 5 men smashed their way into the palace before ripping out the fully functioning toilet, which was an artwork titled America. The toilet weighed 98 kilograms. Goodness, look at it. It's believed it was probably divided up into smaller amounts of gold in order to sell it off.